I will. Can you see the presentation on the screen now, guys?
We see your computer list.
Yeah, just see a list of files.
Oh no. You don't want to see that.
Everyone I'm recording this because I forgot to push the button when we first started.
Okay. Great. So you have the list of all my files on there. Here we go. Is that better?
And while we're getting the documents arranged, will we be able to access this recording afterwards as constituents?
Yes, of course. I have a little
Okay.
YouTube.
And
I
how
have
would
a
we?
little YouTube, and I whenever I remember to press the button, I upload it to my YouTube channel.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Kevin,
And
we
I
can
put
see
it on
your
social media.
presentation.
Okay, excellent. Great. Well, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, 15 pages, I guess. So on the first page, obviously, this is the gist of it. You see the building design here in front. This is 9th Street. North is to the left. So 9th Street kind of is running here in front of the building. And what we're showing is a building that kind of, like I said, kind of has this certain massing to it, which is trying to be respectful of the neighbors and the site. So to the north of us, we have 2-story townhomes. To the south of us, we have 3- and 4-story mixed-use buildings. So what we wanted to do was be really careful on how the building stepped down to the north. And a couple things that we've done here, which I think are quite successful, is we've kind of pushed the building off of the end property line on the north side here. And we have a 3-story volume to the north, so it begins to step up to the full height of the building. And so that is kind of 1 bay wide. And what that allows us to do, which is really nice, is to pull the main, what I'm considering the main facade of the building back by about 15 feet off of that property line. And what that allows you to do is to put windows on that facade. And you'll see in another rendering later, usually if you have like a big building like this next to smaller buildings, you'll have a bunch of windows on the front facade and then blank facades on the 2 sides. And we were able to get away from that to the north because we pulled it back like that. We do also have similar treatments on the rear, and you'll see all that when we go through. So we have this sort of 1 bay wide volume of 3 stories. Then we have 2 what look like, everybody knows in this city the term bay projections. These are actually not bay projections. That is standing on the property line itself. So the whole building is within the property. There's no interior building element that sticks out beyond the property line as a bay projection. So even though these look like bay projections, they are not. It's just part of the building massing. So we have a 5-story volume, 2 bays wide, and a 5-story volume, 3 bays wide, with kind of a gap in between where we have some exterior balconies. Then we have the top of the building mass at 6 stories tall, and then here at the very height is the penthouse. And we're showing no residential units in the penthouse, but just some very small amount of public amenity space. What you also will see in an upcoming slide is down at the bottom here, we have sort of an English basement level, and we have an areaway in front of that to allow light to get into that English basement level. And we've worked with HPO on this one a lot, and they're actually really supportive of our design, because what it does is it doesn't look like this long well where you can like fall into from the sidewalk, but it's treated very carefully architecturally. It's broken up horizontally along the facade, and it's just, it creates some nice public spaces for the residents who live down there, but also, potential for benches and things like that along the site, the streetscape. So that's a quick description. We are here, right there, just, a few parcels up from P Street on the corner of 9th and P. You go up a little bit and we're on the east side of the road. We've highlighted some of the larger projects that have been developed in the neighborhood, and we are sort of right on this upper edge with the Jefferson Marketplace project extending further north a couple blocks to our east. Right across the street from us there is the Shiloh Baptist Church itself. This is just a zoom in of the parcel. We have 94'4" by 85'5". We're right on 9th Street, and then we have a public alley in the rear of the site. And here you could see all four sort of perspectives of the site itself. You could see the massing of the church along 9th Street there across the street from us, much taller than this side of the street. To our south, we have some tall buildings. And then this building here across the street, of course, has been replaced by, I think it's a 9-story tall, really, really tall mixed-use residential building as well, which you can see right there. So these are some neighborhood photographs, and this tan brick building, of course, we all know with the mural on the side is the current building on the site. And you can see here on the top we have 4 images sort of as you progress north on the street. As you take photos, that's kind of the texture of the street. So it's currently a 2-story building with a parking lot next to it. To our south are, like I said, 3 and 4-story buildings, and to the north, 2-story townhomes. That's a good view of the site today. So this is the infill project that we're proposing, 75 feet in height, 6 stories, plus a penthouse, stepping down on the north side to a 3-story volume. They're 1 bay wide. This is a kind of zoom in where you can see the entry on the north side of the building on 9th Street here. That's the first sort of 2 levels, and then there's a 3rd level above it of that volume. You can really start to see the design of the areaway, like I was mentioning, trying to get some landscaping included. We have a couple of cuts here, 1 cut, 2 cut, and then landscaping on either side. So there's like a nice rhythm to the areaway, so it's not just one long solid strip of wall. And then you can see the detail of the windows and the materiality of the building. It's largely a masonry building, 2 colors of brick with these kind of interesting and large openings for glazing. And it's got like a little metal detail to the south, which does a couple things. It allows a little bit more flexibility for some of the interior walls, creates a really large opening on the exterior of the building, and then because this metal piece is actually angled on the south side, you get actually better views. The brick doesn't cut off your view, so it opens up to the street, so you get a much better view, particularly to the south. So here's where you can see further north up the street, you can kind of look back. You can see how our building, 75 feet, compares to the building immediately to our south across the street there, which I think goes up to 90 feet. And the bay projections there are probably, as tall as our full building is. And what you can really tell from this view is what I was mentioning before, how the building actually sits back off the property line so that you can have full window treatments along the north facade. And this view, I think, you always see like 2-dimensional architectural elevations, but no one sees them like that. This is a real rendering and a view of how you're actually going to read the building, and you'll just see, those 2 sides of glazing is I think pretty impressive and pretty important to make it look like a building that's supposed to be there. Here we have a blow up of sort of the upper levels of the building where you could see some of the textural concepts we have, where we take a lot of the masonry, same color, maybe there's a little bit of a mix of similar colors in there, but we sort of turn them and do some interesting masonry details as the building goes up. So it's not just one solid brick expression, but there's a couple of little subtle moves that give the building some secondary and tertiary scales. And then you can see to the left there, that's the 3-story volume. We've got some roof terrace areas scattered throughout the project on top of the 3-story volume, on top of the 5-story bays, and then on top of the roof itself. And we're modifying the details of these expressions with Historic Preservation Office as we go. And now here we have a rear view of the building. It was kind of hard to get everything in here, so we have this kind of skewed view. But what you can see is the public alley here, which goes north to south. North would be on the right of the image, and 4 parking spaces. We have another areaway in the rear, which is fully on private space. There's an area that'll be for trash and loading and access and things like that. And then we have as much green space as we can afford in the back. We want to try to create natural green space to help with GAR, but also just to kind of soften the look and feel of the building from the rear alley. and then the materiality of the building where it kind of changes a little bit on the back. We still have our exposed balconies here with the windows and sort of the similar asymmetrical treatment of the windows and a lot of masonry on the lower levels of the building, and full masonry expression on that 3-story volume to the north. Here we have the floor plans, diagrammatic obviously, but what you can see is on all these plans, it's kind of hard to see, I guess, but 9th Street is on the left side of each plan, and then the alley is on the right side. So we have an English basement level with utility and bike parking in that level. We have the ground floor here with a long lobby that connects all the way through from the front to the rear. We have 2nd and 3rd floor the same. 4th and 5th floor is where that bay projection starts to really show itself. The 6th floor, the whole building steps back. And then the penthouse, like I said, we have no residential units in the penthouse, just amenity space. And that's really it. I have more adjacent sort of neighborhood images. We have some considerable massing within the neighborhood, some tall, I'm calling them tall neighbors. We have precedents of other fairly large buildings throughout, and then we have some material precedent imagery from various buildings throughout the world. So that's our presentation. I'll go back and put it on the first page. Thank you guys very much. And any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Well, I'll begin. So how many units is it total again?
Right now we have 49 units.
Okay. And I apologize. So this is rental or condo?
Rental, that's correct.
Rental, okay. And what is the percentage for if there's going to be any affordable housing at all?
There will be affordable housing. Dennis, do you know what the IZ Plus program dictates?
I believe it will be 18% for this site.
All right. And I think it looks very good. I do have some, John Shaw could not be on the call tonight, and I will read his comments and then we'll open up the floor for everyone. I see Commissioner Lopez. I see Commissioner Barry was on in a second. I think she's still on. So anyway, John Shaw, who's normally a member of the committee, he says the Shiloh project is the correct size for the neighborhood, but I recommend a red brick facade or something similar, given the red brick of the church and other historic buildings on that block. And I think that's actually a very good idea. That's his feedback there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone who wants to comment, feel free to open their mic and go for it.
Yes, so I'm happy to start.
Okay.
So I do want to say thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. It's obvious that a lot of work has gone into this. With that being said, I have to be honest. I would not be in favor of changing the zoning here for a project like this. It's huge. It's really, really tall. It doesn't really fit within the character of the neighborhood. I think, it's clear that the developers here, the folks who are presenting here are aware of that, right? There was a fair amount of coverage of tall neighbors, of other things. Like there's a clear awareness that height is going to be an issue here. I live on 8th Street, so we essentially will back up. We will share the alley with this. We have outdoor deck space. Our neighbors all up and down 8th Street have outdoor deck space, and this will be a massive structure that sort of hangs over all of that. I can't speak for everyone on the block, but I certainly moved here, and I think a lot of folks did, because it gives you a neighborhoody feel in the middle of the city. And I guess you've pointed to a number of other sort of tall buildings in the area, and what I would say about that is a few things. First, those are there. So against the backdrop of those being there, to the extent that those two have in some ways changed the character of the neighborhood, it becomes increasingly important to not have, the proliferation more and more of this as you move up the blocks, because it only adds to the changes that you've already done. So I think there's a sort of an increasing urgency to not move forward with stuff like this, given the existence of those things. The other is that those are sort of contained within a block. You have, I think, Perla just on the other side of that street, but it's that sort of, the giant anchors it there, and it's a little bit of a commercial space with very tall buildings on top of that. This part of, once you get north here, you have a really pretty aesthetic of essentially row homes and other things like that. And it seems to me that if the zoning exists for a reason, and the reason that the building that you're proposing can't be built under the current zoning is because that isn't what this was intended for. That is a different character than the current aesthetic of this area. And so I think, I can only speak for myself, but certainly as a resident here, to me, this would be a step backwards for the area and would be something that I would suggest the ANC oppose.
May I respond to that,
Well,
Commissioner?
can you take down your presentation? Do you guys mind?
Sure.
Can I see everyone? So I can see who's here? Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for those comments. Just a couple of clarifications. You have heard my initial comments regarding the zoning and then Kevin discussing the historic preservation process. With respect to the zoning as it stands now is currently inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And zoning, the comprehensive plan dictates, if you will, that's what the council has directed. And zoning must not be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So what we're proposing actually brings the zoning into conformance with the comprehensive plan. And it does so with a significant amount of inclusionary zoning to be included with the project, which is as you know, major priority of the district. So I think in terms of the zoning element, what we're proposing has been determined to be appropriate. And I'll turn it over to Kevin, but before doing so, just quickly on the historic preservation front, because you mentioned character and it is a historic district. That is the directive and the purview of the Historic Preservation Review Board. And the work that Kevin and the architect team have been doing with the staff is to make sure that the project is considered compatible with the historic district. That's ultimately a process and a review that will be taken by the Historic Preservation Review Board. That's all I had to say. Thanks.
I don't think I have anything to add. Thanks, Dennis.
I see Commissioner Potter. Alex, do you want to say something? This is Alex Potter's area.
Yes, good evening, and sorry to be joining you late. We had an ABC licensing committee meeting that ran long. So yes, this is obviously very preliminary. The application for the map amendment has not been filed yet. We're at the letter of intent stage, and the reason that several years ago the letter of intent process was added was to provide for additional time for neighbors to become aware of the project long before the ANC had to take any action. So I've connected the developer with the Central Shoreline Neighborhood Association so that they can present to the neighbors and gather additional feedback. So yes, I certainly am glad that we've had an initial presentation, but yes, we're far from making a recommendation at this point, as I explained to the developers. So I want to continue listening to what the impacted neighbors have to say about the project, and we'll have a couple of months in which to try to see what can be done with the project to address some of those concerns, and before the ANC has to make a recommendation to the zoning commission.
So Alex, are we not voting on this next week?
No, we're not. So it's a letter of the notice of intent. So they come to the commission, they present the fact that they are going to be applying, and then they come back after the application has been filed and all of the neighbors have been served with copies of the application, and we've had a further vetting before it comes back to the commission. So, I mean, we're months away from an actual hearing on the application, so we have time, and we also have time to we may want to see if we can actually get a read from the folks at HPO as to whether or not they feel the board would be comfortable. Because I know that in other projects on 8th Street where there have been significant additions, more significant than this, I will say, significant additions in in a vertical nature, the board has had, a number of concerns. So
Okay.
I think that we want to continue to listen, and certainly any other neighbors that are present, certainly we want to hear from you.
Okay, well, we can use this video then. Brian, we can help spread the word about this, right? And so we'll get more feedback, because there might be concerns just like what Brian has, so, which is good to know. Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
I have a comment.
Okay. Is that Commissioner Barry?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
All right.
I think it's a beautiful building. I do think it's a very large building. I wanted to know, have you received any feedback from the neighborhood? Shiloh Baptist has been able of, I can remember before Giant was redone. And I just want to make sure that there's racial equity involved with the affordable housing, and that it's actually affordable to people in the neighborhood. That's something that they can actually use, and it's not to price them out of the neighborhood. That's very important to me. I think that'll be some of the feedback you receive if you, ask about this rental building being put here, especially with 49 units, because I think that's huge. Is there an alternative with less units? Because I think it could be a good addition. Um, and I'm not trying to reach here. I was just saying that I think that the neighborhood would be open to receiving this project, but the district is make that suggestion. And I like that it's 18% affordable housing. I just want to make sure that it's equitable, because that's very to the foundation of this neighborhood. I want to enforce that.
Well, I will say the equitability absolutely is very important. I would have to defer that to the developers. I'm just the architect on the project, but I think we all agree that it's got to be useful for the people who need it. This is the first public forum that we've had presenting the project. I do know the developers have reached out to a couple of members of the ANC privately. This is the first step that we've taken with you guys at the full meeting, and then we're going to continue to visit the ANC whenever we're requested to do so. So I know the developers couldn't be here to present in person, so I think they're listening, but they can't, not in a good place to talk very much. So I think next week they're going to be at the meeting as well to hear more comments and have discussions with whoever wants to meet with them. We'll listen to all the comments regarding scale and unit count are all very relevant. Like I guess Dennis had said, the benefit of a larger building is that number one, it's consistent with the current comprehensive plan, but also it provides more inclusionary housing. So that's usually the benefit of having a larger building in the neighborhood, and we're trying our hardest, and that's why we're working with HPO to make it the building the right size for the site without making it feel hulking and overly large. So we're working very hard to do that, and I think some of the things that we've done are starting to do that, and we can just continue to work with you guys and them to get to the right final point. So thank you for your comments, Commissioner Barry.
Well, one last thing. The reason I was bringing that up is because a lot of times when you have huge buildings come in, and this is something to consider and maybe take back to the developers. You have a church across the street on Sunday. Parking here can be crazy, and a lot of times, especially if you have rental, those people put an immense amount of pressure on the area. There's a Giant right there. There's already 2 apartment buildings and townhouses, and the convention center is here. So those are have to bear. And units, or is there a way to make it, to have it, but to not it's not lurking, but it's very large for that space. I know that space very well. I don't know how. I guess because the 6 story, I'll know the details of that. But like, I just wanted to say, like, sometimes with the parking, it can become a battle with living here, and the new residents that will be living in the building have an issue with the people parking who've been here for years parking on the street, or the people that live here. And I don't want it to become like a 7th Street issue, like what happened when in Chinatown, where there was a culture there where there were guys outside drumming, and it's an ANC meeting, and it's like, oh no, there's a noise ordinance anymore, when that was a part of the reason that building was put there. So it's very important to me that we stay true to the values of the neighborhood. And that's what I want to say to you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me.
So Alex Padro, isn't that part of does that have for as far as Commissioner Barry's Park concerned, does that area have the only residential parking? Is that one of the blocks? Or is that too far down?
That is a residence only block, that side of the street, yes.
Yeah, because I think that, yeah. So that helps some. So because parking is, we can talk about that forever. So
But it's half the block is, the other half, because there are institutional uses and commercial uses.
the church side, right?
Couple of different issues there. So,
Mhm.
but parking is always an issue, as all of us in the neighborhood know. It's the P word comes up before anything else.
We love talking about it.
We're going to change it, though. We're going to do something. Yeah, we're going to do something about it. It's not their issue. It is our issue to bear, but, it is something who rent here will be fighting for that little strip of parking as well. Be something. I think even though the bus line is here, there's cars, a bike lane or whatever, it's going to be something to consider.
Well, we hope that the goal is, as the talking point is that they don't bring their car, but we know sometimes that is not the case. So, well, we'll see, right? More to come.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just really briefly, I realize that the zoning map amendment is preliminary, but take a look at the future land use map, which redefines this area as residential medium density, commercial medium density, and the proposed zoning, the new proposed zoning MU5B is not inconsistent with that. I think as a policy matter, we need to continue with infill development and producing additional housing, especially in our neighborhood, which is extremely well situated in terms of access to opportunity centers, job centers downtown. So, we need to, as an ANC, we need to be supporting the building of new housing. And also appreciate that the zoning map amendment will unlock IZ plus requirements for affordable housing. And because these are rentals, it'll be affordable at the 60% area median income level. So from that regard, I'm supportive on a policy standpoint of this project and look forward to hearing more once you file your application.
Thank you.
Rochelle, you're muted.
Sorry. Anyone else before we move on to the next project? All right. And this fine group of people will come next Thursday, 6:30. Tell your friends and loved ones to Zoom into our ANC meeting. It's always fun and interesting.
Thank you very much for your time. We're delighted to be among I guess we're your first matter ever. So thank you. Have a good night.
Lots more information to come. We're excited.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, is anyone gonna, okay, there they all go. Okay, so now we just have what's in my area on 5th Street. Okay, so we have, you guys want to bring up your presentation? This is 1245 5th Street. And this is very exciting. Is Mohammed and Katrina on? You guys want to share your screen?
Yeah, working on it. Just 1 second,
Okay.
please.
So this is what we call the corner store building, and Mohammed's the owner, and he's in the neighborhood. So he's a local owner, and there it is right now. There's the famous corner market, the Fifth Street Market. And so I'll let you guys do where, feedback I have received from my neighbors, from my constituents that about what you're going to show us have been positive. And basically the overall sentiment is any change is good change with this building, period, especially getting rid of that little side thing, which I've talked about before. So go ahead. This is for historic. So we're talking about what this looks like. There's no zoning, right, Mohammed? Mohammed, are you still with us?
That
There's
is
no
correct.
zoning.
Yes.
It's all about what this is. Look, this is in the historic area on Fifth Street, Fifth and N. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Commissioner Nygaard, thank you for putting us on the agenda for tonight. As you know, we have been discussing this project with the Historic Preservation Office and with the neighbors and also with you. And we are very happy that so far everyone seems to be excited about it and in support. So I will briefly just walk everyone through the project. It's a fairly small building. As you can see on the screen, it's a market currently on the ground floor, and there's an apartment upstairs, and there's a partial basement level. The thing on the side that was mentioned is in fact an eyesore and does not. Yes, it is. Right. It doesn't conform with DDOT regulations for projections onto public space. Fortunately, it is a fairly wide sidewalk, but yes, that we will be focusing mainly on improving that facade of the building. So in a nutshell, the scope is to renovate the existing building, to make whatever repairs to the masonry that need to be made, replace windows. We will be lowering the sill of the windows on the front to match the ones on the adjoining row houses marching down the street. And then the more significant alterations are on this side elevation that is really an eyesore. It does not look like something that should be facing a street. In terms of use, zoning constraints, as Commissioner Nygaard mentioned, there is no relief needed. We are simply renovating the building and adding legal, properly built projecting bay windows along the N Street side, and they will conform with DDOT regulations. And we are also adding partial areaways along that elevation in order to bring light to the lower level. The use will be maintained as it currently is, which is partially commercial and partially residential. Currently, there's a market, which is the commercial space. It will be replaced with a cafe. And I'll just flip through these photos as I'm describing it. Here's the cafe on the first floor. And then we have a co-living unit that has the main living spaces on the remaining space on the first floor, and then bedrooms and bathrooms on the cellar and second floor levels. There is absolutely no change in footprint proposed above grade, only below grade. As you can see, this is the existing building rear wall. The only new exterior walls being built are at the new projecting bay windows that you can see depicted here. In terms of building size, there will be a modest increase in the gross building area because we are adding those bay windows. So the building is going from about 2412 gross square feet to 2459. So again, it's a very modest increase. We will be refurbishing the existing storefront at the front, removing some existing brick remains of the front wall that were never removed, even though there's a display window in front of them. So we will be opening that up so that there's a better view from the street into the cafe, a couple of section views, and I'll just go to the 3D depictions. As you can see here, we will be regularizing the window openings along that facade. I'm calling it a facade, I should say elevation, because it is facing a street, but it's not the main building elevation. And then here are our partial areaways. The space at the rear of the building will be used as an outdoor space that will accommodate, of course, trash and so on, but it's not going to be parking, as parking the project will be exempt from parking. Here are some sketchy renderings of the proposed alterations. We will likely repaint the brick. In terms of materials, it's fairly simple, right? We have existing brick, and then we have very simple bay window volumes, mostly with fenestration facing the street side, solid panels at the first floor, at the lower portion of the first floor, as you can see here. And here's, in this view, you can see how we will be opening up the space by removing the existing remnants of the brick wall so that there's a more welcoming view into the cafe. A view from N Street. Here on the left, you see the main entrance to the residential unit. So it's discreetly tucked away from the busier corner and separated from the commercial entrance that way. This door is just a side door for the cafe, just for ease of bringing trash to the trash area and coming in and out, but it's not actually a primary entrance. And that concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So as I stated, overall, the constituents who have reached out to me are very positive about, because, and once again, anything is great with this, you know, and they, you know, further on, we can talk about the type of cafe and all that, because that is a hot button about any sort of cafe, coffee shop in this neighborhood. We've had many proposals in the past and they have all failed. So if this one takes off, Mohammed, you will get a gold star. But that said, concerning what we're really voting on is the historic aspect, not about the cafe. But I have some feedback from John Shaw, again, who's not here tonight. And I have what he says is I have a tendency to agree with him. It's the property on 5th Street. He says about the modernist windows and the expansive glass on the side is totally unacceptable on that corner in this neighborhood. They should at least consider large bay windows common on that side of 5th Street further south and east. So I have to say I agree with that statement. I mean, in the end, I'm not sure if a lot of the neighbors are going to care just because they want some activity on that corner. But I think it is important to, I mean, they're fine, but are they great? I don't know. So there's my one opinion. So.
Can I ask for clarification on that? At first, I wasn't sure you were talking about this project because I'm not sure which large windows.
Those windows right there we're looking at.
The bay windows we're referring to. Okay.
He's calling them modernists. So maybe like more of a tradition, more historically looking, if I may use that word. But you know what? I'll be honest with you. We have so many things that are glass and boxy on Ridge Street and all that. So I know how historic rolls, and they'll probably be okay with this. But a little bit more traditional.
Yeah,
again, my constituents probably don't care. So, but go ahead.
My response to that would be obviously not every detail has been finalized yet, and those bay windows will be, detailed to look like many existing metal bay windows throughout the city that often happen in front or as part of older buildings. Some are actually historic, some are new construction, but they all have this sort of light frame like nature that helps to differentiate themselves from the masonry behind them. It makes them feel like bay window elements, which should be light and should kind of hang in midair, so to speak, not be seen as part of the main massing of the building. And that's just how I would respond to that as an architect. There's a very deliberate reason why those are light elements with large windows. It's to make them feel light on the side so that they are not overwhelming the existing building. You know, it's like a screened porch or an enclosed porch on a traditional brick house. It's the same concept. You're not going to build a screened porch out of heavy masonry. You build it out of light elements, right? So there's a differentiation between the main block, which is historic, and what we're adding. And also, in my experience working with historic preservation, consistently, they have always preferred to differentiate between new elements and the existing building in terms of language. Of course, it's not a stark contrast, but it is important to be able to see what's the original building and what is new. They still need to be compatible, but they should not look the same. So that is something that I must say I absolutely agree with as an architect, that it's important to understand what is historic here and what happened to it over time. That's what history is about. It's about change over time and documenting that, and architecture documents that.
Yep. So a couple from N Street said they might be on the call. Is Angel on the call? Angel, my buddy Angel. No. Okay, so I'll get some more feedback, especially from the N Street constituents. But in the end, honestly, they will be, well, we're not voting on tonight. They're all about that retail space. But that said, what we're voting on is the looks of, what it's going to look like from the street and everything. So, okay, any other person have an opinion or a comment?
Yes, Michelle.
Okay.
So, Katarina, I agree that HPRB does prefer that additions be distinct from the historic building. But I think that the problem here isn't the vocabulary that you're using; it's the color. I mean, are you intending for this to be so dark? Because what it looks almost like a Bayesian, addition to a 19th century row house. I mean, I think that if it was lighter in color, I think it would go a long way to dispelling that heavy feeling that this particular rendering is provoking. So, can you share any light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the color has not been finalized. This is really a sketchy rendering. It's not a photorealistic rendering, and it's not trying to be. So I sometimes people react to photorealistic renderings in a certain way. I think when a design is still in development, it's actually better not to present something that looks photorealistic, because there are still options being evaluated, right? So we don't want people to think this is exactly what it's going to look like. And that certainly applies to the color issue. It even applies to the trimming of the bay windows. There may end up being more reveals and more scale to it. This is really just a sketchy rendering, and purposely so, because not every detail had been worked out when this was produced, and we are still finalizing those details now, and we'll take your feedback, the community's feedback, and the historic preservation offices and review boards feedback into account as we finalize these details. So we're not presenting a finished product here. We're representing the intent. In terms of language, again, this should be considered a sketch, not a finished product.
So again, that's my reaction to it, is that it ends up seeming much more massive than you're intending, and it's by illustrating it in the color that you have, it's defeating the purpose of your trying to come up with something that does seem lighter and less massive. So that would be my recommendation to you, would be to look at either a change in either color or materials, so that it does not seem as overpowering. But about the bay on the front, so are you saying that HPO staff is okay with you removing original fabric in order to increase the size of the overall perforations?
We are not increasing the size. So I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. There are some awkward portions of the brick wall, basically, I think at 2 locations, that exist currently, and we are proposing removing them so that it looks more like what a display window normally looks like. Basically, it was an awkwardly built display window at the time that it was added to the building. And the masonry, probably for expense reasons, there was no beam, no steel being put in place, which is what would be required in order to remove those load-bearing portions of the brick wall. So it was, it was sort of awkwardly done, but does not look right. And it's certainly not inviting for a commercial space to have that obstruction between the bay window and the interior space. So we're just trying to clean that up by.
But
Yeah,
HBO has said that they don't have a problem with your removing that fabric.
They have not commented on it. We haven't seen their report yet, but it's not something that has been brought up as an issue. I believe it is in our description that we are doing that, and we have had discussions with them. So it has not been presented as an issue to date. Maybe it will be, but not at this point.
In my now 2 decades plus of experience in dealing with HBO on projects in this neighborhood, I would be very surprised if they would be supportive of removing any additional fabric on the facade that is retained there. So I wouldn't recommend doing that.
I agree with Alex on that.
So those are my comments.
Let's see if we can see it on the photos just to. Yeah, it's hard to tell on the photos, but basically it's a very shallow display window. Now it's almost two-dimensional because of those portions of the brick wall that still you can see a bit of it here. But yes, we will certainly, discuss that with them, and we appreciate your feedback. I agree with you. They often oppose removing historic fabric. I think in this case, they're considering the bay window itself to be historic at this point, given that it has been around for a while. So it's a discussion that we will certainly continue to have with them and get their feedback on. I think we can, clean it up in a different way. If the brick needs to remain, we will work around it.
Okay. Thank you, Alex Padro. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Commissioner Barry here. I think it looks good. I think the windows look similar to what goes down that street, for what I've seen when I've walked down that street, but I'm not, I don't live on that street specifically, so I can't speak to that, but it is a boxy frame on those windows. Also have a very modern home. So, I do like that look, but this is, for the historic review and not Sheena's taste. I wanted to know, like, there's 10 units in here. Is this a hotel or like a Airbnb? I'm just asking because it's like every room is like 5 rooms at the bottom with bathroom, 5 units at the top with a bedroom and bathroom. Like, what is the use of the building, the residential part of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's obvious that it's not a normal dwelling unit, right? It's what's called a co-living unit, which is considered one dwelling unit, but it has multiple bedrooms, and usually those bedrooms are rentals. It's basically, a different living model that has started to emerge throughout the city in various locations and has become quite popular, especially in zones where there's a limit on the number of units that you can build, such as RF1, right? But that are geographically good locations for this sort of more communal living model. And Mohammed may want to add to that, but yeah, go ahead.
Mohammed, are you still using it as Airbnb, Mohammed?
So the intention is, as Katharina mentioned, is pretty much like a modern way of having such a small building, I would say, and kind of maximize the rental space. So you have your dining areas or your living room being the center of it, and the bedrooms are rental residential units.
Mm-hmm.
Mohammed, are you still using it as an Airbnb total right now or no?
No.
Okay.
So, okay, so are these long-term or are these Airbnbs? Or is that what the use of is gonna be? It's gonna be like a hotel? Or, like kind of like, a hostel, like you have a room and you share a community area like that?
Yeah. So the use of it is long term, but it is used as like as you explained it. You have a common space that is shared, and you have your space that is private.
Okay. Yes, bedroom, bathroom, I see that on the floor plan. Okay. I was just wondering, like the in and out of it, how does that affect people who, live nearby? I know sometimes when you have Airbnbs, that affects, owners and who might live near you. Also, there's an influx of people in and out of the neighborhood. I just wanted to know what the use of it was. Um, uh, and have any of your neighbors like spoken about the project or make comments on it to you directly, or have you received any feedback?
Yes.
Mohammed,
So
did you answer Carrie's email?
yes, I think you were copied in that email as well. So
And the answer? Okay.
yeah. Come back to your question, Commissioner Berry. So yes, I personally have talked to my neighbors, a lot of people in the community. It seemed like pretty much everybody that I have spoken to so far is in support of this project. So that's thumbs up. No negative reviews yet. Hopefully not at all.
Okay.
I think, as I said, I think people will be more obsessed with the retail part, which they always are. So
Mhm.
when that happens, if that happens, so I wouldn't place any bets, and that's no offense to you, Mohammed, but I've dealt with this story, I don't know how many times, about a cafe coming in, every time it has failed. So I hope it happens this time,
Good luck.
whenever it happens.
So I've got another question about the residential. So Mohammed, basically, we're looking at a 21st century version of a boarding house, right?
I think that was the best way of answering Commissioner Berry's question.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
But you could always change it, Mohammed. I wouldn't, again, right? We got a long ways before this project comes to fruition, right?
Yeah, and I actually have a comment, or more like a question to you, Rochelle. What is, I know this might be a little off topic, but what is the current status on 1200 Fifth?
So it's out of the court case now. So what Mohammed is asking is about is this isn't Commissioner Berry's area, is the large parcel, the garden style apartments and the large parking lot. That is supposed to move forward. I do not know when, but they are out of court now. Just for reference, 3 neighborhood churches were suing the developer, and it was in court for more than 2 years. And it had to do with parking, believe it or not. And so I don't know I can find out for you, Mohammed, but it is out of the courts now. So it should somehow be moving forward. I don't know when, but I can find out.
Okay.
There you go. It's positive because it's out of the court system, and it was in there for a long, long time. Okay. Anything else from anyone?
No.
So I'm a little bit concerned because I just, I don't know. I think we're supportive. I mean, we are supportive. I'm a little bit concerned. I want to get some more because I didn't hear from my end street. They weren't on the call. So just before I give my stamp of approval, I think I'd be more comfortable just getting some more of my end street feedback. And then we can vote on next Thursday. Anyone else have it? Alex, Padro, do you care?
I mean, ideally, I think the committee should, have some recommendations to the commission. I think we've had a number of comments, and you can collect those comments and have that be the
Okay.
feedback to the commission. That that the applicant is encouraged to refine the plans for the bays on the north facade so as to minimize the perceived weight of the bays and the removal of historic fabric on the facade to increase the size of the bay window to increase visibility, should be discouraged.
And the
I
color.
would say that at minimum
And you said the color, right?
on the base.
Okay, why don't you, okay, anyone else have any comments about, we could add, I'm gonna have Alex, that was very nicely put, Alex. I'm gonna have you do the motion. So,
Were there any other
anything
comments?
else?
Yeah.
Huh?
I just wanted to hear if there was anything else that we should add.
I think that sums it up, at least from my opinion.
Okay, not hearing any other comments, then I move that the committee recommends to the full commission, that the applicant, consider making changes that would reduce the perceived massing of the bays on the north side of the building, either through color or materials, and to discourage the removal of any historic fabric related to the base.
And what they look like, yep. Okay. Do we have a second? Anyone on the call care to second? Commissioner Barry?
I will second the motion, but honestly, that's not something that I see a concern about. But I think it is uniform, or it fits right into what's going on down that street, down N Street, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree. I think, again, the issue is that it looks like two big black bays that look sort of like the MLK library stuck on the side of a historic building. And if it's a different color or different materials, then it wouldn't seem as imposing.
And Commissioner Barry, let me tell you, this there'll be other changes probably, and often or rarely does it go through historic,
right,
like the original submission, right, everyone? So.
Okay. I'll second that motion to not remove the fabric.
Okay. All right. Okay. All in favor. Everyone who's on the call, who's a constituent, can vote too. Aye.
Aye.
Brian. Who else? I can't see. Tara. Okay. All right, great. Okay, motion. Anyone against, or anyone against it? Raise your little hand. No. Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Oh, okay. Brian abstained. Okay, Brian.
There's too much going on I don't really know about, but it seems great, but I don't know.
It'll be great. Don't worry. Everyone, don't worry. Okay. Okay, everyone. I want to thank everyone for presenting and thank you for your time. We went a couple minutes over here. But again, we'll see everyone next Thursday at 6:30. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, you guys. Be safe,
Bye.
everyone. Stay warm. Happy Groundhog Day. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening.